White Sox Postgame Show, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app today and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. Welcome in to our West Loop offices here in downtown Chicago. This is Studio A of... what the hell am I doing? Welcome into Studio A in our West Loop Chicago. Ooh, welcome into Studio A here in the West Loop of Chicago. We are coming to you live after a White Sox winner, 17-4.
Had you gone 3 strikes on that, I would have made you take that hat and throw it off the set.
Yeah, but then I'd show my bald head.
It's the price you got to pay for striking out on the intro.
But they won 17-4. There's no reason to be upset. There's no reason to be.
Good. The vibes are good today.
Very high.
Sun is shining. It's 80 degrees.
Beautiful day outside.
Life is good.
Hanser Alberto at his first career 4-for-4 year, or 4-for-4 day. What do we make of the 17-4 output?
Scored a hell of a lot of runs, didn't they? Graham Ashcraft, not to be confused with Graham Nashcraft, which is, for all you rock and roll fans out there, came in tremendously. He'd only given up, I think it was 6 runs all year. Maybe 8 runs. It was 8 runs. It was 8 runs all year, 2 ERA, 8 runs in 6 starts, and the White Sox scored 8 runs off of him in 1 inning. Of course, that wasn't even the total of the damage that they did in 1 inning, with 11 runs in that second inning against Cincinnati. But, the bats blew up today. The same day that Eloy Jimenez officially goes on the injured list for that appendectomy that he had to have in Cincinnati, the bats break out and all the runs are scored. They do the Eloy job in honor of their teammate who's going to be on the shelf for about 4 to 6 weeks.
I feel like now would be like the appropriate time to hang his jersey in the dugout like they did.
I think, you need to get the Jimenez jersey up in the dugout, and they'll score 17 runs every day.
Every day.
That's how it works, right?
All right. A Ross Glode number of runs.
Okay, you really are. You just saw Connor recently, so that explains it. You were going to say, though, just a ton of runs.
Yeah. And happened quickly. I mean, I stepped outside for a brief time this afternoon to enjoy the sunshine a little bit, was following along. I couldn't keep up with the alerts on my phone. Just big inning, the kind of inning that it feels like you've been waiting for a few years for the White Sox to have. The kind of inning that it always seems like they've been capable of, like the potential was there for them to just really light somebody up, but it just didn't happen. And here you go. Today was the day. Cincinnati's a good ballpark to do that, though. It's a notoriously hitter-friendly park to play in. A lot of guys love playing in Cincinnati because you can put up some runs, and today was the Sox day to do that.
Well, you're going to jump into all the, this hasn't happened since so-and-so, so 17 runs should be admired as a once-in-a-blue-moon type thing. That being said, this is the kind of ability that the White Sox were built to have, right? To be a offensively menacing team. We spent so long during that losing streak and during the first month of the season in general saying, where are the bats? Why aren't they consistently producing any runs? What's going on? Now, it might just be that a trip to Cincinnati is good for what ails you. That is a bad Reds team down there playing in a, as you mentioned, hitter-friendly park. But this is kind of what, everybody that works for the White Sox expected to happen when the year started. A lot of people had questions. They're putting their faith in the same guys who just went through last year being able to produce offensively for the most part. They were expecting days like the one Andrew Vaughn had, like that home run that Gavin Sheets hit today, like some of the hits. I think he was on base 4 times that Luis Robert Jr. had today. It's this kind of thing. Now, obviously, they're still dealing with so many injuries. Eloy Jimenez is going to be out for a while. Yoan Moncada almost back from being out for a very long time. But this is what they had in mind. But we'll see as May moves along if it's going to be more of a trendsetter or more of a flash in the pan.
Even Moncada hitting a home run down in his rehab assignment in Charlotte today. I think Pedro Grifol has also pictured the days of Hanser Alberto leading his team in victory in the 5-hole. Boy, will I never run my mouth again on Twitter saying Hanser Alberto batting 5th. This is crazy. First career 4-for-4 game and hitting a home run as well. Hanser and made some nice defensive plays, as you noticed twice, I think. To
showing you that he belongs in that 5-hole, I guess.
And Husky
At least
Bardo,
for today.
Yeah. Right now, no one's going to push him out. I mean, unless Yoan Moncada gets here tomorrow.
Which could happen.
Oh, okay. Husky Bardo saying 4-2, 16 more to go. Let's go, Sean. Again, the 20-9 prediction. We'll get to it later on in the show, but I see 3 wins in Kansas City. Call me crazy, but you talk about them imagining this future, and I did see a tweet. Luis Robert is currently on pace for an 8-WAR season. Isn't that interesting?
How about it?
That'll
Steven,
do.
I think you got some stats for us. Luis Robert was a monster in Cincinnati. 7 for 8. He also had 2 walks, 1 homer, scored 6 runs, 4 driven in, and a slugging percentage of 1.5. So that just means a lot of bases for Luis Robert.
Really goes to show you too, and I think I'm as guilty as anyone. I wrote a story about how Luis Robert Jr. was slumping so bad, and remember that day, was it in, I don't even remember where it was. Was it Toronto where he made those terrible defensive plays?
When he was running and taking them from Eloy.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
That was in Toronto.
Yeah,
and then
so I mean, and
came back against Tampa and dog, quote unquote.
He had the benching, sure.
Had the communication breakdown.
Communication breakdown for all you Led Zeppelin fans out there. But, yeah, I mean, again, it goes to show you how quickly these things can end. Sometimes it is just you look up one day and it's like, oh, Luis Robert Jr. has gone from being mired in this terrible slump, the kind of poster child for what was going wrong with the White Sox, to all of a sudden he's hotter than hell, and he's a guy that could be helping power them out of that rut that they were in through the first month of the season. They're 4-2 in May. I think 5-2 if you dial it back to that walk-off win against the Rays.
Not that you want to get too ahead of yourself about things, but given the way their season started in April and just how poorly that went, when what's the roadmap to kind of climbing your way out of that? It's you win a series at a time, and it's just been 2 so far, but that's what they're doing against the Twins. Now against the Reds, you're set up nicely to do that again against the Royals in Kansas City. That's the path out of this. It's not an easy one, but I'm nuts and I'm just a crazy optimist, but this is the way that you do it. You just win a series at a time. And
oh, you're not crazy. I just realized I never introduced us. So, you're Jared Wyllys. You can follow him on Twitter.
They're panicking.
So it's just...
people will figure out. You're Jared Wyllys. You can follow Jared on Twitter at JWillis, Y's instead of I's. And, hey, he was filming Straight Smoke out on the deck when the White Sox were scoring 11 runs.
The latest installment.
Of the
coming at you
2023 season. Episode 7?
I believe so.
Look at that. So subscribe and make sure you're checking out the shorts page for that to pop up when Jared gets that all edited. And that's Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. Jared covers both White Sox and Cubs, and he'll be out at Wrigley tomorrow for the whole Wilson Contreras Fest. I know that's a crazy story that's even interesting, Vinny.
Oh, my God. I was reading all about it with Wilson Contreras and what's going on in St. Louis. White Sox fans, you think you have it bad. You should see what's going on with the Cardinals right now. It's reunion week for you because you've got Contreras going back to the north side in the first half of the week, and then we'll both be on the south side this weekend when Jose Abreu returns for his first visit back while wearing a different jersey.
I'm excited. It's a big week.
Doesn't it feel a little too perfect that he hasn't hit a homer yet?
Ooh.
Against this White Sox pitching.
This is when you cross your fingers that he hits one tomorrow or Tuesday so that it doesn't happen. You don't want the first one to come against the White Sox, do you?
You don't? You don't.
I mean, that's a good story.
Wouldn't that make Friday a hell of a lot worth the drive and
for me
traffic on I-90?
For me, selfishly, yes.
Yeah.
I hope he waits and does it Friday night. That'd be fantastic. But because
story writes itself.
Makes my life a lot easier. But I think for the sake of the psyche of Sox fans, you kind of hope that doesn't happen.
Well, if you want a great segue, Sean, I'm here to present one to you because you know who will be pitching Friday for the White Sox against the Houston Astros. It's Michael Kopech, who gave up 4 home runs today, has given up 12 home runs in 7 starts this year. I believe he was at 15 in 25 starts last year, so he is about to catch himself from a year ago and do so in a much fewer number of innings than it took him last year.
How many did he give up in the home opener? 5?
5
homers.
Now I got to look up.
So
how
9
many,
of those 12. Again, someone did point that out to me on Twitter when I posted that stat. 9 of those 12 have come 2 games.
2 games, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know someone, I think someone mentioned, or I think you brought up tipping, Steven.
I asked about it just because it seemed like they were on everything today, but I also noticed his fastball velocity seemed like it was down a little bit.
And there were a few of those that it looked like he really left them up in the zone, and they just
He looked
jumped on
mad.
it. Yeah.
Like he looked frustrated.
He wasn't happy
right.
with the home plate umpire at one point either. I believe he was upset over the strike zone, which he stayed in the game. It seems like Pedro Grifol had to come out and intervene to make sure that was the case. But gave the White Sox 6 innings today. I mean, they were all solo homers. We talk about it so often, like, pitchers make a mistake or 2 or 3 in a game. As long as nobody's on the bases, it's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean?
Minimize the damage.
Obviously, people, see the ball go out of the ballpark, and that's not a good sight. But at the end of the day, I think you'd rather have a day where your starting pitcher gives up 3 solo home runs in 6 innings versus getting knocked around or putting a ton of guys on base via the walk, which Kopech did not do today. Something this entire Sox staff has had trouble with this year.
Yeah.
Kopech didn't do that today, so there's that, I guess. But
Just gave up 4
his
homers.
ERA is up there around 6, which is not good.
He was able to keep his pitch count down, reasonably low, and low enough that he lasted for 6 innings, which, given how the second inning went for the White Sox offense, it kind of became hey, let's just keep our bullpen out of this game for as long as possible.
When what jumps out to me in innings like that, I mean, that top of the second inning took half an hour at least. It's almost like it's a rain delay, right? Like whenever there's a rain delay, the starting pitcher almost always is done, comes out of the game if it interrupts the game like that because they've had to be sitting for so long. A half-hour offensive inning where you're sitting down and you're used to going back out there, especially now with the pitch clock kind of pretty quick.
Yeah.
You wonder, do you throw out everything that happened to Kopech after that inning? Because it's like, what a ridiculous set of circumstances under which you have to go out and then pitch another 5 innings after that. And granted, he gave up a home run in the first inning. Things looked like they were going to be bad for the White Sox after that rundown in the first inning. But obviously, the second inning was the story of the day and made everything else kind of for naught.
Well, and I think he gave up the back-to-back homers to Stevenson and someone else. And you mentioned, well, who cares? I mean, just
who cares?
Give them up. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, the ERA is going to go up, but again, who cares? You bring up this is now the second game where he's given up 4 or more home runs. He could join a club this year. I hope he doesn't. There's been 6 players to give up 4 or more home runs in 3 games in a season.
Ever? Wow.
Do you want to try
baseball or for the White Sox?
Ever?
That's amazing.
Do you want to try to guess? There's I think 4 names that are gettable. I don't know.
This is intimidating.
This is in the history of baseball.
Baseball.
Yeah, ever.
Baseball.
6, you said?
6.
That have done it 3 times.
Yeah. One's active and on the Royals. And will
Greinke?
pitch. No.
Oh.
And will pitch in the upcoming series.
Is it Brad Keller?
No.
No.
One's
Who else is on the Royals?
one's a current GM. One's
Okay.
one I think is 2 are Hall of Famers. Yeah,
Wow.
2 are Hall of Famers.
This is a wild trivia question.
It sure is.
Thank you. I just found it.
Any former White Sox on that list?
No,
There
I
goes
don't
one
think
of my
so.
guesses.
unless I don't know.
2 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
This also seems like something that would have happened a lot more, like in the first half of the 20th century when there were no
Yeah.
Do
relievers.
you want the years?
Sure.
Yes.
Herb's got a guess in the chat here.
Bingo. That he got
Chris
the GM.
Young.
Yeah, there you go.
You can't prove he didn't look at his phone to check, but
Well,
there you go.
yeah.
I trust him. I trust him.
2016 with the Royals, Chris Young had 3 games where he gave up 4 or more homers. That was the one from 2016. There's 1955, 1970's a Hall of Famer, 1986 a Hall of Famer, 1999, and 2021 is the active Royal.
All right, let's go with Jack Morris.
Yep.
Hell!
Wow. Nice.
1986 with the Tigers. He's a bad Hall of Famer, so that's a good
No one's
guess.
a bad Hall of Famer.
Well, I just like to say that he's a bad Hall of Famer because I think that makes Burley's case better, you know?
Can't they just all be Hall of Famers? That means they're all good?
Yeah, but you have to make a case.
Stop being mean to people who are
I'm
good
not
at their
trying to
job.
be mean.
We do have a guest in the.
Jack Morris clearly wasn't that good.
who's
He
the-
gave up
So
3 games with 4 or more homers.
Fred in the chat says Chris Bubich.
No.
No.
I think there's 2 more pitchers in the rotation. So I think we've named 3 of the 5 pitchers. So you got 2 more left.
Singer.
No,
That's 4.
All right,
Who's the last Royal
There's
starter?
1 more pitcher. He pitches. I swear to God, he's going to pitch against the White Sox.
It's not Royal starters of old like that I had to watch in 2012, is it?
No, he's
It's
a
not
free
Luke
agent signing.
Hochevar, is it?
Yeah, he's going to pitch after Greinke.
This is Tuesday's starter.
Tuesday's starter.
Oh, boy. This goes to show you how much we look at the probables, right?
Yeah,
All right, we giving up?
I'm tempted.
And then hold on. There's another Hall of Famer to guess from the 70s.
Yeah,
From
1970.
1970.
Braves.
Braves.
Phil Necro.
Phil Necro.
Wow.
Boom.
Wow. Look at this.
All right, I got 2. That's pretty good.
That
All
is
right, give
really
the other
good.
ones.
Warren Hacker with the Cubs.
Not aware of who that is.
In 1955.
Yeah.
He was born in Illinois. He died in Illinois and buried in Illinois. Played baseball in Illinois.
The trifecta.
Oh, he's a White Sox. He was a White Sox
you
in
go.
1961.
See, I
Warren
would have
Hacker.
guessed it. I asked if there were former White Sox.
did.
That's why I totally why I did.
Were you gonna say
would've got
Dallas
Warren
Keuchel?
Hacker.
I was thinking that.
That's what I thought you were gonna
I was
say.
thinking Dallas Keuchel.
All right,
yeah.
who's the other Royal?
No, you got so Warren Hacker, Phil Necro, Jack Morris, Chris Young. Chris Young is the Royal. He was a Royal when he did it.
I know.
And then Jordan Lyles.
Jordan
is
Lyles.
the current
Okay.
active
Oh.
pitcher for the Royals. Will
All
be
right.
playing on Tuesday.
All right.
And then in 1999, Jeff Facero.
Oh, former Cub great.
Oh yeah.
Jeff Facero.
you
Yeah, I
go.
didn't know.
There you go.
Also from Illinois. Look at that. He's from Springfield.
Wow. Those
Look at
Land of
that.
Lincolners.
Yeah.
They love
How
giving
about
up a
him?
bunch of home runs.
He wasn't a White Sox.
Well, that was a pleasant detour.
Yeah,
I
it was.
enjoyed that.
So real quick, just to tidy up on Kopech, let's go to the lines real quick, and we'll talk about. I think you mentioned his velocity being down. Steven, you brought up tipping. He seemed really frustrated. There was a couple of just really bad sequences where I think he was just throwing the fastball heavy, and we saw that in the San Francisco game against VR, where I think he literally threw him 5 straight fastballs, and on the 5th one, it was like, okay, well, here comes a fastball. 6 innings pitched for Kopech, 4 earned runs, 8 hits, 2 Ks, 1 walk. It really doesn't matter because Graham Ashcraft, 1 2/3, 8 earned runs, 6 hits, 3 Ks, 2 walks. Kopech threw 61 fastballs. The average velocity was 94.3. His yearly average, 95.8. So down a tick and a half. And Stone was talking a ton pregame. Hey, we just saw a great game from Michael. We just saw great stuff from Michael. This wasn't great stuff. The slider also down about 2.5 miles per hour. I know that there was bad weather in the area, and it seemed like he saw that he had that one slip as well on the mound. So I just don't know if he was frustrated with pitching today. It just seemed like the home plate ump was bugging him. Seemed like the mound was bugging him. Thank God they scored 17 runs because it didn't matter.
Things could have gone very, very differently today, especially given how that first inning looked when he gives up the leadoff homer and then that really ridiculous rundown that they somehow managed not to get anybody out, which seemed like just a breakdown of who's covering which base, who's supposed to be where. Some of that fundamental stuff that I know has caused them problems before this season. And so, yeah, in a way, like, it's kind of nice to see that you can have an inning that looks that ugly to start off the game and then just bounce right back from it, at least for the team as a whole. Because, yeah, I don't know that Kopech really looked all that sharp today. Still managed to kind of grind his way through 6 innings and do the job that he was supposed to do. But, yeah, velocity was down, leaving some pitches up, looked visibly frustrated over a lot of things. That weird slip on the mound, which, watching the replay a couple of times, it's sort of hard to tell. Was that a mechanical mistake where his foot placement was off? Was it, so, yeah, he didn't look sharp, but he deserves some credit for muscling his way through 6 innings and getting it done.
Yeah, I do want to ask you a question quick, just because you're not always joining us. You're always doing Cubs stuff. Maybe you're doing White Sox stuff. We're happy to have you here. Again, in our West Loop offices in downtown Chicago. I think that's what I usually say.
West.
It's what you said
Chicago.
to start off, and then
Yeah.
you decided you were going to take another swing at it.
You know, there's an ADHD medication shortage, folks, and Stephen,
Hey,
what'd you?
it's a poor craftsman who blames his tools.
We're trying. Stephen, what'd you say when you walked in? Because you were listening on the radio, but what'd you say about the rundown?
Yeah, I said just listening on the radio while that play was still going on. I said out loud, "Everyone's going to be safe," and it was just me sitting in the car, so I don't know why I had to say that out loud. And
I
they
talked
were.
to myself. Don't worry.
They were.
Yeah.
It was just. It just had that.
Steven was
feel.
frustrated before it even happened and couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
but
think-
still somehow sensed that
Yeah.
that was what was going to happen.
We've seen that before this year as well. Blame me.
Well,
correct
no,
me if
there
I'm
was
wrong.
the botched rundown that ended up with Tim Anderson on the injured list.
That okay. There's
The
that
one
as
in
well.
Minnesota
Yeah.
that where Hanser just made some poor decisions on where to throw and where to catch and all sorts of stuff. So, but today the back and forth was fine, and then everybody, once they kind of got out of the little merry-go-round, they kind of decided to just sit and watch. And I think that was the problem. Nobody was covering first base, which obviously made that all possible.
Vaughn was behind second base, not in front of the
Right.
base.
It was just it kind of needed to keep going. You remember when the Blackhawks were good, that cycle play down in the corner that they would always, and you'd be like, wow, they're really doing this for a long time. That's what needed to happen today on the rundown, and it did not.
But Jared, what I wanted to ask you is, I've brought up this quote before, and now we've seen, what's the Sox record? 12-23, so about 35 games. 35.
35.
Yeah. We've seen 35 games so far. And what Pedro said when he took over in November, some things you can expect from the White Sox. We'll communicate. We'll be fundamentally sound. We'll play with passion, pride for this uniform. We've got to improve defensively, obviously, and I feel that fundamentally we've got to improve. Do you think that so far you've seen that in the 35 games that Pedro's been on the South Side?
No.
No, that was easy.
Yeah.
Next topic.
All right, let's go to the ad break.
No, you have the play today, and then in the series against the Rays not that long ago, they gave up a run in a similar sort of situation where it was watching it kind of felt like guy with the ball isn't quite sure what to do with it. People aren't covering where they're supposed to cover, and then run scores from third. You know, the kind of stuff that, I coach my son's 9 and 10-year-old baseball team, and
So this is an expert talking.
yeah. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Legendary Little League coach, Jared. Oh,
Right.
And
But, one of the things you work on with kids like that age is when you get the ball in the field, where do you go with the ball? Where's your throw going to be? You go over all that stuff. And not to I know it sounds like I'm suggesting that the White Sox are playing a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds, but there are moments like that where they'll make a play like we saw today, like we've seen a couple of other times during the season, where it's like those are mistakes you cannot make as major leaguers. I'll grant any player or team the occasional where you just bungle something, you goof it up. We all space out from moment to moment, but to have done that now in the first 35 games, 3 different instances that we can name just offhand, that to me doesn't support the idea that, as Pedro Grifol said, we're going to be fundamentally sound. I think I can point to at least 3 examples where it's not the case.
Well, we've talked about it before, Sean, obviously, and it jumps out because Pedro Grifol and the staff were brought in to fix everything that was wrong last year. Yeah. And this was one of those things that were wrong, right? Especially in the field, but we saw it on the base paths a lot too. Mental mistakes piling up often throughout last year. It's what prevented them from being anything more than a 500 team. And what was so frustrating for fans and what was very apparent to me over the course of the first month of this season, in which the White Sox were much worse than a 500 team, was that none of those problems seemed to go anywhere. And that includes these fundamental issues, these mental mistakes that they make, to go along with all of the lack of offensive consistency and the pitchers not being able to throw strikes and them not walking and them not hitting for power, all that stuff on top of each other. It looked like last year over again. And granted, I don't think we've had enough data to say, oh, they're out of the woods, the losing's all behind them, they're going to start winning now. But all that stuff not going anywhere was part of the reason where April ends and you goes, well, they haven't shown anything to lead me to believe that it's all going to turn around tomorrow kind of thing. It's not like, oh, man, they're just getting bad breaks here and there or one thing is broken. It was just everything carried over, which when you place your faith as a front office, as an ownership group, as a brain trust of this organization in a new manager and a new coaching staff to come and be the change that makes 2023 different from 2022, that hasn't happened yet. And that is the great failure that I see so far is just where's the change? What's the difference? You could have, it seems right now that you could have Tony La Russa in that dugout and it wouldn't be very much different. And I don't know if that's true or not because I think Pedro's doing a fine job. I don't think anybody's out there being like, boy, that Pedro Grifol, he's ruined everything that they were building kind of thing. It just seems that as they move forward, it's on this staff to figure this out, to come in and do the job they were tasked with doing, even if maybe it was not an easy job or not an even possible job to make all the way to get all the way to the finish line.
And especially because last year the manager was so much a part of the story. Deservedly or not, right or wrong, Tony La Russa was a major part of the story for the White Sox, and he took a lot of the blame. And, we heard the Fire Tony chants in the stands later in the season. And so it became really about, the focus really got on the manager, and it's about who's managing this team. So then I think that adds a lot to when you bring in a new manager in Pedro Grifol, where maybe we're looking at some of these things more critically than we would otherwise, or more harshly than we would otherwise, because it is a little different when you bring in like some new players and then you're looking at like, all right, we're going to turn this around based on there's some different guys in the lineup, different guys on the field. But the story last year was, in a lot of ways, it's the manager, it's Tony La Russa, and so he's out, you bring a new guy in, and so if things don't work out, it naturally feels like, well, it must still be the manager in some people's eyes. And so, yeah, maybe when he says things like we're going to be fundamentally sound, maybe he will be proven right over the long run, but 35 games isn't enough time to fix some of what's wrong with the guys in the dugout.
Well, and then it also feels like I'm asking you guys, like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, when it's injuries or defense. Like, I mean, I get the manager stuff, but it's also, we're going to talk about it in just a second, like, doesn't have a full squad out there. I mean, his third baseman currently isn't on the team. He just got the shortstop back. The DH is now gone. The center fielder's now playing well, but he had, leg issues and whatever. I mean, and now Grandal is dealing with some back flare-ups. He's not on the IL just yet, but, we see Carlos Perez coming on the roster, meaning, maybe Yaz is limited, very limited. He's limited to... Maybe Yaz can't catch a ton. Really, I got a degree for communication. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm surprised in like 3 years. Like,
you should see, like, maybe if that's real. Like, crack open the frame and make sure that's a real thing.
Hold it up to the light or something.
Mercy. Yeah.
It might be like written on the back of a menu or something.
It might be. It might just back of a.
It's in crayon.
No, in that university, maybe. All right, let's go into the ad break, and then we'll talk about Eloy Jimenez. We watched today's game on Fubo TV. They have 140 live channels of sports, shows, movies, and news, and you could stream live TV from any device and watch the most Chicago sports for the lowest price. You can start watching immediately with a 7-day free trial. There's no contract, no cable, no hassle. Just sign up and start watching. My favorite part is the 1,000 hours of cloud DVR included at no extra charge. I can go back and watch the White Sox. Hey, I didn't really want to watch the White Sox last night, so I watched it this morning because of the cloud DVR. Boom. You can watch local teams while traveling, and you got events coming up like the NHL draft on ESPN. I think the draft lottery is tomorrow. There you go.
We'll be doing a show right here, so make sure you watch.
Wow.
Will the Blackhawks be number one?
Jay and Greg and Mario are going to be hyped to watch some balls bounce around a cage.
Can either of you name the number one pick, the guy that they're trying to get?
It's Eric Bedard, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. It's Eric Bedard.
Former Orioles pitcher Eric Bedard.
Love him. NHL, NBA playoffs.
That could be real or I wouldn't know the difference.
Connor Bedard.
I'm not a hockey
Eric.
guy. So,
But that's a good reference for all you baseball fans.
There we
Shout
go.
out. For all you Seattle Mariners fans out there.
There's a game. I don't know if we can steal it, but there's a game I want to bring to play with you guys.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, what a tease.
Yeah, there you go. You can watch NHL and NBA playoffs as well on Fubo TV and the White Sox on NBC Sports Chicago with Fubo TV. Use the link in the description to sign up for 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. FuboTV.com/CHGO. What are you guys drinking? What do we got here?
I've got myself a Goose Island hazy beer hug.
That's a 6.8.
6.8. It's tasty.
that.
Of course I've got the 312.
Of course.
I go every bar you go into this city, you go, they go, what do you want? You say, give me 312. Let's make it easy.
Boom.
Let's go.
Won't do you wrong.
It's the area code, so of course it's going to be in every bar.
Easy to remember, too.
It is. They also have the 9.9% alcohol one of the Tropical Beer Hug. They have the Goose IPA and the Full Pocket Pils, which is like a lager, which you Midwesterners will probably love. Who doesn't love? What Midwesterner doesn't love a lager, right?
Absolutely.
It's been Chicago's beer since 1988, and CHGO supported by Goose Island Beer Company. You can grab an ultra-fresh brewery-exclusive beer at Goose Island's original brew house on Clybourne Avenue in Lincoln Park, or from their tap room on Fulton Street in Westtown. Goose Island Beer Company, Chicago's beer. Emmanuel showing you some love in the chat, Vin. His beloved.
Wow.
Seems intense.
It's all right.
I'm happy for you guys.
I welcome it.
Let's go to the stats with Eloy Jimenez now hitting the IL. Maybe we talk about the injury first. Kind of out of nowhere Saturday, we hear Eloy Jimenez is in the hospital. And then news comes down from the White Sox themselves that he has been placed on the 10-day injury list, retroactive to May 6th due to an appendectomy, and then recalled Carlos Perez from Class A. But they say the timeline is about 4 to 6 weeks for Eloy Jimenez to recover. What do we make of the whole situation?
Hey, it was Albert King who said in the great 1965 tune, Born Under a Bad Sign, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all. And boy, Eloy Jimenez knows what that feels like. Again, this guy gets a lot of crap from a lot of people for them suggesting that he's injury prone and all that went with that from him playing in the outfield and wanting to continue playing in the outfield. This is just to go show you that it doesn't matter. This can strike anybody at any time. Bad luck has dogged Eloy Jimenez throughout his career. You're about to read off a lot of numbers in terms of how many games he and many of these players have played in over the last several seasons. But this just cannot stop happening to Eloy Jimenez. And by extension, it cannot stop happening to the White Sox, because here we are, second, third year in a row where we're saying, oh, well, they're going to get a healthy Eloy this year. And even that, in the early portion of the season, that hamstring pull that he had, or that hamstring tweak that he had, that's a baseball injury. And he was back at the end of the 10 days. He was back. Here's another month and a half long absence for this guy. I feel terrible for him, because he can't get out of the way of this thing, and by this thing I mean so many things, affecting all sorts of parts of his body. Some of it's been his fault, some of it has been due to poor play in the outfield, but some of it has been because he's been trying to run the bases hard for his team, and some of it has been because his body revolted against him in Cincinnati and said, I got to get out of here, did his appendix. It's upsetting, because it's a guy who works really hard and tries really hard, showed up to spring training, we know, having lost a ton of weight this offseason. It sucks for him. It sucks for the White Sox, and that's the biggest bat in the order, yanked right out of there, and right when he was on quite the hitting streak as well.
Yeah, 8-game hitting streak, and he had 14 hits in those 8 games, raised his OPS from 544 to 743.
Yeah, it was really finally starting to look like your third in the order hitter. This is your big bat that you needed, because I know coming into the season, one of the questions was, how are you going to make up for Jose Abreu's absence on offense? And so some of that was, well, you're going to need guys like Eloy to step up. And it's tough because, yes, there have been times with Eloy where he gets hurt because of stuff that he does, like trying to rob a home run in spring training, But yeah, there's also a lot of times where he gets hurt because he's trying to hustle. And then this is one case where he's not injured. It's just a thing that happens to people's bodies, and you have no control over when it takes place. And still, I've seen that he's getting flack for it. And I know some of that comes from frustration, where it's like it feels like every time you turn around, Eloy's back on the injured list. But in this case, it's like there's just nothing the guy can do. Appendicitis, it's not like you can, there's nothing you can do. His appendix just doesn't like Cincinnati. I don't know. You're
ticking time bomb.
Hey,
Ate too much chili.
Any amount
They're
of
not
that
paying
chili,
us,
any
so I'm
amount of
not-
that
That's
chili
chili.
is bad for your health.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to plug them. They're not paying us. I don't need to say the brand, just chili,
just
If you know, you know.
that chili.
Yeah, it's bad luck. I mean, seriously. I just 4 to 6 weeks. I know some people were interested in that timeline. I mean, if they can adjust it, they will adjust it, right? But if
he's
it
on
takes
the
4
10-day
weeks,
injured list.
Right.
So, I mean, theoretically, he could be back in a week and a half if his body was all right there. Obviously, that won't happen. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about recovery from
Dr.
appendicitis.
Duber is not in?
Duber.
No, never. It will never be in. But yeah, I mean, listen, they say 4 to 6 weeks. I would imagine that if I had part of my body removed in emergency surgery, I would probably need some time to get back to running shape as well. And I can't run as it is. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see how long they're without him, sure. But again, when they tell you he's going to need 4 to 6 weeks to come back from appendicitis, he's the one who had the surgery. Don't be like, you should be back sooner. Like, come on.
No, I'm not doing that just because I'm more asking because I know Adam Dunn had an appendectomy in the 2011 season on April 6th, and then he came back and played on April 12th. Not saying that all athletes are the same or that he should do that. Also, I want to note that Adam Dunn that year hit 552 after playing through and rushing or possibly rushing and playing 6 days after having an appendectomy.
I'm going to go ahead and say he didn't hit 552.
So what you're saying
his
is,
OPS was 552.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I rushed that.
Okay, I was
No.
like,
No.
well,
He
in
was
that
bad.
case, let's
His
bring the
batting
Lord
average
back.
was 155 and had 174 strikeouts.
Oh.
No, he
That
was
makes more
bad.
sense.
Correct.
That makes more sense. Okay.
So maybe there is former White Sox past to say let's take our time.
Yeah. Maybe take more than, what was it, 6 days?
6 days. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still have my appendix, and so I can't speak to what that's like. But any sort of injury, I don't know, 6 days.
Well, and maybe looking back at this, this quote might illuminate things. I'm going to try to play Thursday. That's one thing I don't want to miss is opening day at home. I'm going home tonight, planning on playing tomorrow, and we'll go from there. If it feels like this tomorrow, then we might have some problems. But I'm a quick healer, like Wolverine.
Ooh.
So
Good reference by the Dunner as well. There.
yeah, but he didn't
Okay.
heal like Wolverine.
Well,
So-
I mean, he's back in 6 days. It's pretty good.
But then he was bad.
See, that's a good question,
Baseball.
though. Would Wolverine grow a new appendix, or would he just heal without an appendix?
That is
Because
a
you
good
don't need an
question.
appendix.
Because he has once in his history regenerated all the way from just a drop of blood, but you don't need an appendix. Is he going to grow a new appendix back?
And
this is a great question.
It is a fantastic question.
I think he would grow a new
The
appendix.
whole
back.
appendix,
Yeah.
and an even stronger appendix than the one he had before.
Well, but again, it could burst whenever. He'd be fine.
You guys
he
ever-
probably wouldn't even have to have it removed. It just
No.
burst and he'd be fine.
It could burst
It would
in,
hurt, but
in
yeah.
game,
Right.
And just it's back.
Give him a few minutes.
Let's
yeah.
do this.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys ever hear about the axolotl?
The axolotl. I know what an axolotl is.
The
yeah.
salamander?
Yeah.
It's like regenerative. Or regenerates. It's
Numerous amphibians can do that. I think a newt
Really?
can grow its tail back if it gets chopped off or something. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, shout out to axolotls. All right, let's go into the stats here. All right, so funny enough, the last time the White Sox scored 17 runs in a game was August 27th, 2021. Can you guys name the first 6 hitters in that lineup for the
Wait.
White Sox?
This is the last time they scored 17 runs. Was just 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
against the White Sox, against the Cubs, 17-13.
In
I
order.
don't know if you remember that.
Oh,
game.
this is the Dallas Keuchel
Yeah.
starts game, gives up all the runs, and they come back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Who is 1 through 6 batting order?
TA.
Right.
TA 1,
I'll say Roberts in there.
Robert 2.
Are we doing this in order or just?
I mean, just throw them out.
the-
Throw them out.
The
We'll
6.
figure out. Huh? I'll lay out the pieces.
I mean, Jose.
Jose Abreu 3rd. You guys so far are 1 through 3.
Say Eloy.
Eloy 4.
Yeah.
I don't think
Can you guys go perfect?
Yoan wouldn't be.
Yoan 5.
Was it Yaz?
Yasmani 6.
Wow,
Look at that.
There you go. And the more point is we're trying to focus in on Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, Yoan Moncada, and Grandal. That is one of 45, possibly 46 games. We have the stat here from NBC Sports Chicago. 45 games played together, 11%, or is that 11% of 418 possible games? My research found 46. So
Right there.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I just want to make sure, just let that be known. So I have the stat of this. The White Sox had 25 games of Anderson, Moncada, Grandal, Jimenez, and Robert in 2020. So they've only had those 5 in the lineup for 20 games since 2021.
The last 3 seasons.
The last 3 seasons. They were 16-9 in 2020 with those 5, 9-3 in 2021, 1-1 in 2022, 5-2 so far in 2023, and 31-15 overall when Anderson, Moncada, Grandal, Jimenez, and Robert play. And right now, we probably won't see that for possibly 4 to 6 weeks now.
2 games last year. You just read.
2 games, yeah.
2.
1-1. And it was 2 games in Texas. They finally got Robert back from that Minnesota thing, and then Tim goes out.
I mean, here you go.
It was a nightmare.
Like, all the frustration about the White Sox, that's it. That's the headline right there.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking for an explanation as to why is this like this, that's the headline right there.
Absolutely.
It really is. I mean, because when you it's almost as if you need your best players to play.
Oh, what a concept, Jared. This is why we have Jared on from time to time, to bring
this
that
is why they invited
new way of
Illuminating.
thinking.
Yeah. If you get the good guys on the field, you're going to win.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And
So, and when they're never on the field together at the same time, you're going to lose.
And here it is again for the next month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Sean, you're talking about,
they're 15-6 since in those 21 games since 2021.
You're talking about that big prediction, of how many wins they're going to get this month to get back into it, to claw back into it. Heck, I think Herb tweeted out they're 7 games out of first place. Like, this is not a ridiculous climb to have to make in that regard. But now you're down Eloy Jimenez. And it's just like you finally see this light at the end of the tunnel. Yoan Moncada might be coming back. He was the last piece of the puzzle, might be coming back. Robert's heating up. Moncada's looking good in AAA. They finally got TA back at the top of the order, and boom, the next month, no Eloy Jimenez. How are they going to do this? How are they going to do what you thought they might do? How are they going to make this climb out of that hole that they created for themselves, which Pedro keeps talking about, without the biggest bopper in their lineup?
Well, that's actually a great transition to our next ad break, because then we'll talk about the Royals next, because I think this is a way that they can win 3 games here.
How they're going to do it
3 or
without
4.
Eloy Jimenez? Play the Royals.
Play the Royals. Play bad teams. I mean, well, Jared, you haven't been here, but we had
play the Royals.
we had a discussion, like looking at the April schedule, and it was, maybe they'll win their first series against Minnesota, and they do. Maybe they'll win their first series against the Reds, and they win their second. Like, it is an easier schedule now. And so far, once that they're not playing the Rays and Orioles, etc., we've seen 2 series wins. Like, is there something to say about that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's only 6 games.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at what their April schedule was like. You played the Rays twice, who not only are a very good team, but are just playing like out of their minds to start the season. And yeah, I mean, you get an easier schedule the next month, and it's just stands to reason you're gonna win some more games. I mean, part of that, a small part of why April went the way that it did, is they just had a lot of tough series. I mean, they started the season against the Astros, and that was not an easy month by any stretch schedule wise. So yeah, I mean, we kind of joke, but yeah, you want to climb out of this hole, you got bad teams lined up, and you do what good teams are supposed to do, and you beat the bad teams. So when you play the Reds, and I know like people like to downplay it. Oh, it's just against the Reds. Don't get too excited. But that's what they're supposed to do. If you think that they're capable of being a good team, then you beat up on bad teams. So You go to Cincinnati, you take 2 out of 3 there. You go to Kansas City, you take 3 out of 4 there. That's what you're supposed to do. This is how this works. So again, it's 7 games back. I know that if you look at just their record, it looks really ugly. But if you look at the division standings and can this team get back into that division race? Yeah, I think they can.
Right now, the Guardians are 2 games under 500. The whole 20-9 prediction would get them to 28-30. So they could put themselves to where the Guardians are right now with a good not April. What month is it?
May.
But here's the next pitchers coming up for the White Sox, or opposing pitchers, and then we'll get to the ad break. Greinke, Lyles, Keller, Singer. Singer has an 8.82 ERA.
Yikes.
TBD. And then the Astros come to town, and that's one of the TBDs. But then they have Bielik and Hunter Brown, your Rookie of the Year pick.
Who's killing it.
Absolutely. So, but, they just had Luis Garcia go down.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's not like the Astros there. Then they have Shane Bieber and then Peyton Battlefield, who has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball.
Sorry, his name is Peyton Battlefield?
Yeah, we'll talk about that a couple weeks from now. I can't digest that right now. It's literally in 10 days.
I heard TBD sucks too. So,
yeah, TBD's a stinker. But yeah, I mean, like there's 2 truly good pitchers coming up, and it's Brown and Bieber. And, we see the extreme splits for Ashcraft. I think the righties had an OPS of like 800 versus them, and lefties had an OPS of like 400 versus them. So that probably explains why the White Sox, Hanser Alberto, Luis Robert, Andrew Vaughn had really good days today. But yeah, I think that this is a schedule that's coming up that the White Sox really can take advantage of. All right, let's take a quick break and let you know about FOCO. The Vinnie bobblehead. Have you heard about that joke?
I have not.
It's not really a joke, but where does Vinnie work? Where does Vinnie, when the White Sox don't have away games, where does he work?
He works at Guaranteed Rate Field.
Where does Southpaw work?
Guaranteed Rate Field.
Have you ever seen them in the same place together?
I mean, if anybody on this set,
Thank you.
If anybody on this set would have, it'd be you.
True. Yeah, that is a good point because I've been there when you're there.
Right.
And when he's there.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it.
Vinny's tall.
Yeah. I've never. Interesting.
You're framed, dude. You're we got you dead to rights.
I can neither confirm nor deny, but for what it's worth, I've never seen them together at the same time. Take that for what it's worth.
I don't know. I just all the
and yet again, Sean,
it
you're
all
the one
makes
wearing
sense
green.
To me. Yeah. Again, I always bring this up with that.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's just Sean trying to lead everybody off the scent.
It's not me. Look over there.
I'm not tall enough. So get fitted in the sports gear around FOCO, who donated the Southpaw and TA bobbleheads. They have great bobbleheads, hoodies, shoes, signs, and everything in between to get yourself fitted out with. But it's also spring and baseball season, so you can get Aloha shirts, straw hats, polos, bags, everything you need for a game. And again, the lovely set decorations were donated from FOCO. So check out FOCO.com, FOCO.com, or click on the link in the description below. And for all non-presale items, use the promo code CHGO for 10% off your order. So again, FOCO.com, FOCO.com, and use promo code CHGO for all non-presale items. I think the Andrew Benintendi University of Arkansas bobblehead is a non-presale item, so if you want to add that to your collection.
Woo Pig Suey.
Yeah. You guys got some glasses. Did you bring your sunglasses?
Indeed.
Yeah, you did. All right. Right now it's dark. I think it's raining. But take on the shades when I find the Shady Raids read. Take on the sun with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Raids have you covered with warm weather ahead with premium polarized shades at an affordable price. Jared, you just talked about the BOGO deal. You got 2 pairs yourself.
Got 2 pair. I've got one and another one in the car. It's a backup pair.
Which one is your favorite? Is it these?
It's too early to tell. I just got these just this weekend. I don't want to make a call yet. I love them both equally.
So what you're saying is it's early.
It's early.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, and I like that you guys kind of have different, black, white, and then you have kind of a thicker frame on the outside here. And Vinny's kind of got the wire little frame there. So all styles over at Shady Rays. They're an independent sunglasses company that offers a world-class product that's just as good as any expensive pair we wore, would you say?
Indeed.
There you go. They have durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures and styles for, whatever your look is. I didn't bring mine in, but, you guys or styled out. Anyways, if you lose or break your pair too, even on day one, they told us that they will send you a brand new pair. No questions asked. Wear your Shady Rays with confidence because they have your back long after your purchase. If you don't love your Shady Rays, exchange them for a new pair or return them for free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back. So exclusive for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Go to shadyrays.com and use code CHGO for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized shades. Try for yourself. These shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. Again, code CHGO, shadyrays.com for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized shades. All right. Vin, do you have that ComEd read?
Oh, Sean, do I have the ComEd?
Oh, my goodness. I just want you to tell me how excited I should be about ComEd. And I should have given you a little bit more of a heads up. I'm just trying to stall.
I'm number 2.
I'm
so excited that it's getting
You want to
bright
be number
in
2
here.
or do you want to be number 1?
I can be number 2.
Okay. All right. Well, the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities they serve, and they help manage energy usage and lower energy bills not only now, but into the future.
You know you're right, Sean. ComEd offers a wide variety of incentives on lighting and other efficiency upgrades to commercial, industrial, and public sector customers of all sizes across our beloved territory. ComEd also offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities, like for HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes.
My mind is just swamped. How does it work?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
I know. Me
An
too.
authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. These can be done in person or virtually and last approximately 2 hours. Within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that they can start working on immediately. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, project cost, potential incentives, and simple payback. If you own a business, don't wait. Oh, here's the Chicago Transit Authority. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy-saving tips, lighting incentives, or to schedule your free facility assessment, please go to ComEd.com/poweringbiz.
Did you say ComEd.com/poweringbiz?
Sean, I did. So schedule it today.
Amazing. And you just wanted to do your Eddie Olczyk impression.
Because I know that you would have asked me to do it anyway, so now
That's
I'm just
true.
getting out ahead of it.
Well, it's really good. It's really good. I mean, they had that one commercial with that impressionist selling alcohol, and I think you should be the impressionist because that guy stunk.
Well, I don't know.
They need to hire a new actor for that.
Well, here's the thing.
I think it's his alcohol.
Yeah, I think he's the guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
He's the most famous impressionist of all time. But to folks our age, not really.
Ironically,
Yeah.
made a bad commercial. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did a Johnny Carson impression to however many people who are still alive that works on. I don't know, but
I
you know.
can't say I saw any Johnny Carson.
Well, so here, in about 50 years, get ready to buy and see commercials for Frank Caliendo's whiskey.
Will he be doing a John Madden impersonation?
Probably,
Yeah.
and no one will get it.
No
As
one
like a turducken.
that'll be so confusing to people. Like, what is this? What am I watching?
All right, let's go back to the White Sox. Bob Knight, maybe he'll be doing a Bob Nightengale impersonation. I would like to see Frank Caliendo take a swing at that.
Fewer people would get that than the John Madden one.
That's fair. Maybe if it's titled properly, people would understand. But Bob Nightengale wrote for USA Today in his usual Sunday notebook column about the White Sox. And there was a lot more about the White Sox in this piece and a lot of joking about, maybe Pedro was the wrong guy. After he made it like 3 times, I was like, okay, Bob, all right. So,
the Tony La
he
Russa
was like-
bit that he keeps doing.
yeah, and it was like, maybe it's not Tony's fault, and maybe they should bring back Ozzy.
I mean,
It's like,
to
no.
be fair, I've written that Tony La Russa line in a story this year.
He did it like 3 times in the same piece. But anyways, Bob wrote, if the Rangers wait, and he was talking about the Rangers doing well so far.
They're in first place on the AL West.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of money, you win some games. It's not working out for the Mets.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It didn't work out for the Rangers last year.
That's true. But they spent more money.
Also, the Rangers play in the same division as the Astros, so let's not go booking October plans for Dallas quite yet. Yeah.
But Bob brings up they could pick up veterans Joe Kelly or Kendall Graveman if Chicago White Sox are out of the race by July. The White Sox don't plan to keep starter Lucas Giolito after the season and will make him available at the trade deadline if they are out of the race. And the White Sox certainly plan to pick up the $15 million option on closer Liam Hendricks in 2024 considering the buyout is also $15 million. I would hate to see Liam Hendriks not in a White Sox uniform, and I don't think that's super pressing right now. But let's go to the second one. And the first one, did you balk at all when you first saw Joe Kelly, Kendall Graveman, or Lucas Giolito's names thrown out there today in USA Today?
I did, especially. Is anyone itching to get Joe Kelly at the trade deadline? Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, he's been pretty good.
Okay.
Like, I know he had like a crazy ERA last year, but his outlying metrics were like his FIP was like 3.36, which is pretty decent.
Yeah.
And so far he's looked good. It's just he hasn't pitched a ton. Like 7 games.
Yeah.
6 games.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the stuff that from Nightengale here, I mean, that top thing is entirely speculation. It's entirely just, hey, here's a team that's not doing well that has some pieces that other teams might find useful,
and
right?
If they are like near 500, like we just talked about, if they have a great May, that point's moot. Like they're going to keep Kendall, Graveman, and Joe Kelly.
Bob's point on Hendricks, obviously he's doing some reporting there that they plan to pick that up. But if you'll remember back to when they signed Hendricks, that was a very strange and talked about part of that contract was, hey, look, the buyout for year 4 is basically the exact same, not basically, it is the exact same cost as just the option. So Liam Hendriks was terrific in the first 2 years of his White Sox contract. Obviously, has not pitched yet this year, but is pitching in relief in the rehab assignment. They wouldn't expect anything different. Of course, why wouldn't they want to pick that up for next year? So the middle part there is kind of the meatiest newsworthy thing there, because it is something that he is reporting. Granted, it is just that report : at the moment. But jumped out at me. Interesting to suggest that anyone would be far enough down the road yet to make that decision. Lucas is having a nice season, but there's 5 months of it left. The White Sox are having a bad season, but there's 5 months of it left. We have no idea what Lucas Giolito's market is going to look like once he hits free agency. We have no idea what his final numbers are going to be at the end of the season, and we have no idea what position the White Sox are going to be in. Their season can go any number of ways right now, and I think that's being written as if that April record would be repeating itself from month to month, and they would find themselves in this disastrous place that they never thought they would. But who knows what they do with options? Who knows how other pitchers perform? Who knows what they do at a trade deadline? Who knows what that starting rotation looks like next year? It is way too early, I think, to project any of that. And so to read that they're already making this decision on whether to even attempt to bring back Giolito, it seems that so many things have to happen before they could get to that place.
And it is really surprising that anyone would be sharing that kind of information that he would have. That I have a hard time imagining a front office making up their minds now, kind of to your point, Vinny, that they would have decided now, this is what we're going to do with Lucas Giolito. That doesn't seem realistic to me, because so much of what you hear from front offices is they don't make decisions like that this early, or because you're projecting over 2 months from now where any of those things are going to be, and to then also make that kind of make that public, maybe indirectly, so that one way or another Bob Nightengale has this information. Just surprises me, because that seems to run counter to the way that they typically operate, and where does that put Giolito?
And what does that do for his desire to come back to you?
Yeah,
too. I mean, what if this doesn't end up being the way the White Sox want to go, and they do make a push for him in the offseason, and he's like, well, wait a minute, I read USA Today in May.
Well, and it even extends later. I mean, we saw the arbitration stuff where they're possibly arguing, or were going
right, but that was them actually doing something.
Right.
This is just
speculation.
And no, it's not. Well, I mean, it's a report, but my point being is that this is you're making a decision on a guy who's not going to be a free agent for another 5 months.
And the way that he wrote that is he's reporting this as if it just is. This is what they are doing, or what they plan to do. People can be wrong about things, but
Would it not track, though, because you see on your side, the Cubs just this offseason made the addition of Tyone, 4 years, $68 million, and you look at his stats since 2018, 567 innings, 3.83 ERA. Giolito since 2019, 631 innings, 3.85 ERA. Like, not saying that it would be exactly the same contract, but it would probably be $68 or more million, right? That would be the largest contract ever for a White Sox pitcher. John Danks was $65 million. Like, this is a team that just cut payroll by $25 million. So does it not track that this team might not go out and spend on a starting pitcher if, especially all of the reports, or at least the report above them, is they might be out of it by July?
And that part of it, to me, tracks. What doesn't track is that this would be something that they would have made known now. They may be thinking that this may be sort of in their plans, but it would surprise me that they would just make the decision on May 7th. This is what we're going to do, and that that information has been shared, that Bob Nightengale has it.
I mean,
that's what surprises me.
I think you just answered your question in the way you phrased it. You said they may be out of it by July. Well, it's May.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like, don't you think that if you truly believe in that White Sox front office that these guys are capable of turning it around, don't you want Lucas Giolito to be a part of that? And again, we're talking about after this season.
Right.
I mean, but that's the thing, is that, like, you talk about July, well, then also talk about September, because, like, what kind of season are you having that determines the place that your roster goes? There could be things that happen in the 2 months after the trade deadline if they're not bottom of the barrel like the A's or the Royals. If they are middling, isn't it a different set of decisions that you have to make versus if you're bad versus if you're good? Heck, it's not mathematically impossible for them to come back and win a division and make the playoffs. Then all of a sudden their calculus for 2024 is entirely different than it was a week ago when we all saw this, being like, all right, well, write them off. They were horrible in April kind of thing. So
when do you think they wrote off bringing Abreu back? Do you think it was before May of last year? Do you think it was a later season decision?
I mean, didn't they offer him a contract, supposedly?
Yeah, but I mean, we don't know how
what if
competitive it was.
Well, but what if he accepted it?
True. He didn't.
I think
he didn't. No.
There are times when teams clearly have made the decision, we're just going to move on. We referenced him earlier, Wilson Contreras with the Cubs. That was a pretty clear example of they had decided either we trade you at the trade deadline, and if that doesn't work out, then thanks for everything, time to go.
But that team was mid-rebuild.
Yeah, and it's different circumstances, and
I don't think the White Sox know what their circumstances are going to be at the end of this season.
Right, and that's what makes it, I think, a little more hard for me to understand this, because that situation, it seemed a little more clear cut. We're in a rebuild. We don't see you as a part of where we're going from here. But the White Sox situation is different. Just there are times when teams clearly have made that call for whatever reason that they're just going to move on, and maybe it is strictly financial. Again, the one part of it that surprises me is that they're okay with it just being out there.
Well, maybe they're not okay with it, but
it
is out there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is speculation, but like Herb's always brought up the anecdote of him trying to get the most money possible when he was drafted, and he kind of went to the last minute with the Nationals and the Royals, and the Nationals and Mike Rizzo. I'm not sure if the White Sox maybe want to deal with him. I mean, again, there was frustration before with the arbitration process. I don't know if, maybe it is a situation where they just don't see the future with that player. Maybe it's not because of the quality of player, but hey, he's been in our locker room for 5 years now, and maybe it's coming to a separation. I would be surprised if that was it, because Ethan Katz is like the reason, like the reason why Ethan Katz is here is because Lucas Giolito, and then Ethan Katz is going to stay, and Lucas seems weird. So I don't know. They're not out of it yet, so nothing is written on what is going to happen with Lucas Giolito. He might be the reason why they're having a ton of success. I mean, we called him Luke Ace Giolito after his last outing, so we'll see. Let's get into the next series, and then we'll wrap this up. We do have a post-game show for you tomorrow on Monday. We'll have a pre-game show on Tuesday and a post-game show then as well. We have an off day on Wednesday. We'll be with you on Thursday and Friday. But Zack Greinke is pitching against the White Sox tomorrow. Dylan Cease is on the bump for the Sox, 6:40 in Kansas City. Let's go to this quote, though, from last year. This was during the August 11th game where Greinke was on the bump, and this was during the first inning after Luis Robert struck out. And Steve Stone said, "During the wintertime, I go to the same place Greinke goes to, Starbucks. We talked over coffee on occasion, and at that time he didn't have a place to play." Eventually saying, quote, "I'd like to pitch at least one more year," end quote. And it turned out to be in Kansas City. Benintendi, line drive, right field from Andrew Vaughn, and this is an interesting matchup for Greinke with how aggressive the Sox are. Stone, and what I said to him was, "Well, look at our ball club." Quote, "What is it about our team that you notice about them when you are pitching against them?" End quote. He said, quote, "I can throw them anything. They'll swing at it. Doesn't really matter. I will try to get ahead, and then I'll get them out of the strike zone, and they will make it easier than it probably should have been." End quote. So Zack Greinke trying to kind of reading the White Sox to filth there. This is something where Pedro Grifol, who has talked about preparation, coming from Kansas City, I would hope has a really good game plan for Zack Greinke, who has diminished stuff, is really going to try to beat the White Sox with his game plan. And if the White Sox are prepared enough, this should be a bloodbath. I mean, the White Sox clearly show that they have offensive ability. Hopefully they can keep this ball rolling, because so far in May, so good. And Pedro having this leg up, being in Kansas City for 10 years, it's his revenge series. I mean, I love that narrative. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what you make
listen,
of the Greinke. I mean, we see just the White Sox, a big narrative before the losing or the winning streak, them swinging outside of the zone. I mean, Greinke talks about that.
I mean, what can your reaction be to that other than yeah? I mean, the manager last year, the manager this year, two separate guys. What is the thing that they say is the biggest problem on the team? That the batters are chasing too much. You don't have to go to inside the Royals clubhouse to get the secret to cracking the code and beating the White Sox. The White Sox manager, whether it was Tony La Russa or Pedro Grifol, will tell you what the problem is. Now, it's also their job and the job of the coaching staff to make that not the case anymore. But at the end of the day, the players are the guys in the boxes. Or the singular box.
Yeah.
You know what Greinke's going to throw at you? Greinke just told you he's going to throw a ball outside of the strike zone. So maybe don't swing at it. And that's not me giving them any sort of secret. They know that. They're professional baseball players. I'm a terrible athlete. They're going to go out. They need to go out there and execute. If you want to call it a game plan, that's fine. Or just do your job. Right.
Well, maybe not game plan, but Pedro also said think the White Sox went 9-10 versus the Royals. We would know when they're going to show up and play. Hopefully the White Sox for these 4 games show up and play, because
according to Pedro, that has not been a problem.
That's true.
That could be manager speak, but according to him, there's been nothing from a mental or attitude or emotional approach standpoint that is the reason that the White Sox are where they are in terms of their record. I think and so many people want to be able to make that judgment through a TV screen. I don't think you can do that. But what you can determine through a TV screen is that they haven't played very well for the most part. And so that's the thing. You want to not be beat by Zack Greinke. Play better.
He's just told you how to do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hopefully they smash the Royals, because, again, if we have the Royals and the A's and the White Sox. Those are the 3 worst teams right now in baseball. You got to put yourself out of this basement. And you have 4 games against them, against Greinke, Lyles, Keller, Singer. You've seen so much of Greinke. You've seen a ton of Keller. You've seen a ton of Singer. And Jordan Lyles gives up home runs. And I know Andrew Vaughn has a career home run against him. Make them pay. This is a perfect time to really just kind of flip the script. I mean, you could be 16-23, 7 games under 500. Yay. If you sweep or vacuum, right? It would be 4 games.
4 games?
Yeah,
That's a vacuuming.
A vacuuming of the Royals. Anyways, that's
Hoovering.
going to do it, the hoovering of them. Make sure you follow Jared Wyllys on Twitter. He's both our White Sox and Cubs beat writer, floating between. He's a baseball connoisseur, and that's why he has straight smoke as well. So follow him on Twitter.
He's a connoisseur of many fine things.
Cigars.
Baseball and cigars.
What you smoking on the way home, or did you already do that?
I had my smoke already, so
What was
I had a Macanudo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's the band Ricky Martin was in, right?
Yes. Yeah. And
Yes.
and that famous dance.
Yeah, right.
The Macanudo.
Yeah.
All right. But follow Jared on Twitter at JWillis, Y's instead of I's, and make sure you follow him to know when the next Straight Smoke is posted so you can watch that short. Make sure you're also subscribing to our channel. We have over 30,000 subscribers. We're not at 30 likes yet, so please, for Nick Swisher, Dirty 30, please hit that thumbs up button.
Mags as well.
Mags
Yeah.
as well. You know, I'm a Swisher guy. That's Vinnie Duber. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Duber. He's our CHGO White Sox beat writer. And I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. I see our guy Herb Lawrence in the chat as well. Shout out to Herb. And make sure you follow him because he'll be in Kansas City for the next couple of games. And thank you to Stephen Nicholas for producing the show and everyone hanging out with us in the chat. We'll talk to you tomorrow after the White Sox take on Zack Greinke and the Kansas City Royals with Cy Cease on the mound. Talk to you then.